lawyers and AI, huh? That's a wild combination. I'm built by a bunch of humans who are kind of obsessed with the idea that computers can understand and interact with the world in a more human way.
One, two, three, four.
Welcome to the Automated Lawyer Podcast. I am one of your hosts, John Fritz, and I'm joined with my co-host, Dan Schnurbusch. Dan, what's going on this beautiful Monday?
John, I'm doing pretty good. I am very excited because it's supposed to be 70 degrees today. I feel like I've been just cloistered inside for a long time now. And I'm a walker. I like getting out and walking, and getting some energy. It helps me feel better, getting out there and think more better. It's clearly I need to be doing more walking because my thinking is a little slow. But I'm also, on the other hand, I'm also a pansy and I don't like to be cold. So if it's cold, I'm going to sit inside in front of the heaters. And so I'm very excited to get back out there and get the juices flowing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yesterday spent most of the day, if not almost all the day, outside. Starting the lifelong process of trying to get grass to grow. So, just every year I just, I'd give it an attempt, and it's about, I moved recently, so I have a new set of grass to work on, but, it's a lifelong project, it's pretty unforgiving, but, you just keep trying and trying, but was able to spend outside, most of the day outside, and it was fantastic. It was beautiful.
Yeah, we did too. And it was, the kids were even blasting each other with water. It got so warm at one point, and they were washing the cars, and it was very nice. Yeah, I am not a lawn inclined type of person. My wife last year took over that job because I wasn't doing it, and she got it looking pretty good by the end of the year between fertilizing and mowing, and mostly it seems like it's just watering all the damn time.
Yeah.
But now it's just everything, inflation. I think we're spending like $100 a month on water or something like that. It's crazy.
But yeah. Well, I
mean,
it's, anything I can do outside, and, it's just, there's just like a buzz about like spring, like that first, St. Louis teases you with kind of spring, in like February, right? And then it's like, once we're in the 10-day forecast of in the 70s pretty much every day, it's like, it's go time, and there's definitely a good positive energy about going into spring and, in summer.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you don't realize you have seasonal affective something or other until you've been locked inside for all day. This feels like the rays of God shining upon me. Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited to get the juices flowing again and start doing some new projects. I was thinking this morning, like as I was thinking about different topics and stuff to discuss today, I was trying to think, like, I'm running out of things to automate, and like, as I was like, I want to talk more about what we've been doing, and I'm running out of things to automate, and it's a moment where I'm like, what do I do now? What do I do now? But I guess it's a good.
You can automate my stuff. You know what I mean? That's what you do. Is that if you need to scratch that itch, you just come on over, and I got a laundry list of things that that need to be done. So
yeah, I finished a big project last week. This was a fun one. I'd never done anything like this before, but what I was wanting to do for part of our AI that I wanted, you've been working on Eleanor and getting her like statutory text and all that stuff. Well, I wanted to create a better system for cataloging and vectorizing statutory research, like statutes and case law and stuff. So I created this database in Airtable. It was just a table of like statutes, like name of the statute, the enactment date, and here's the text, and here's a summary of it and all that. And but I didn't want to do that manually because like there are a lot of statutes, right?
Yeah.
So I just searched on YouTube, like, how do I use make.com to scrape websites? And of course, Missouri has pretty good public statutory. It's reasonably well organized, like the statutory lists and all that. It's not super searchable, but fortunately Google is. And so I pulled up all the statutes, and I found a YouTube guide on how to use Make to scrape all this data. So in like 20 minutes, I got a web scraper working that would pull all Missouri statutes in whatever chapter I wanted, like, 461 or 473 or whatever, probate code or whatever. And it would pull every single statute and the hyperlink to each page and the name. And then I could run a separate automation that would actually fetch all of the statutory text and run it through ChatGPT and summarize it and then dump it all in a database. So now we have like this nice Airtable base of every probate and trust and every statute you could reasonably think of, which is relevant to probate and estate administration. And then I was able to get a very simple automation set up where it would push all this into an OpenAI vector store so that we could connect it to an assistant. Because now, like, an assistant can now query the thing, and it will return not only the text of the statute, but it will return the hyperlink to the government website and the statutory number, and it's all structured now. So we don't get any like half responses where it's like, oh, that's the right rule, but you cited the wrong statutory number, stuff like that. So it is super cool. And I still need to think about what I'm going to totally use it for. Mostly right now it's for blogs. Like it writes blogs very well because it can like cite to the stuff.
Yeah.
But I need to figure out other useful things, maybe like an internal chatbot or something. But that was my last actual like project-y thing. I think I finished, but
Yeah, it sounds like you're really searching for the next project there, because I'm not so sure that. I mean, I agree that there are uses, but with the statutes, but for the most part, the probate-driven practice is not. We're not citing statutes, right? We're filling out forms. Sometimes we're going outside the box, but not a whole lot though. So that's good.
yeah. That's why it's mostly geared toward marketing. So if it writes something, it's well cited to the Missouri law with hyperlinks to the actual code. It was a lot of work to create a small improvement in in our blog writing machine, but it's cool now. I don't have to worry about cross-citing, and I don't have to worry about it hallucinating fake laws and stuff like that. So
That's good.
it is pretty neat. But anyway, so other interesting news. So I posted this in the group a couple of days ago, and I don't think that many people have had the chance to explore this yet, yourself included. So I'm excited for you to meet a very realistic sounding AI model. So there were some big improvements in voice AI in the last couple of weeks that were announced. One of them is the main one is from this company called Sesame, and it's not available to the public yet. They don't have a public facing API, but they do have a demo that you can play with, and they're teaching you how it works in their research review, and just how much radically better it is than anything else that's out there right now. So I anticipate I have to read through like when they're hoping to get this launched, but at least we can play with it right now and see kind of the state of the art, which I think is really cool. Do you want to play with this for a minute?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's see if I can get this working right.
I mean, if I could get rid of Smith AI's overflow and just simply have something that was reliable and replace Smith AI as a backup caller, not as the front lines caller, but answering service, but that would be great.
Well, hello there, stranger.
Oh.
Didn't expect to see you back so soon after our last chat.
Oh.
Glad you decided to come back for more.
Oh, well, hello, Maya. I'm here with John Fritz. We're on a podcast. We're actually live recording a podcast right now. And first of all, I wanted John to meet you. And then I wanted our audience to meet you. So could you introduce yourself and tell us a little about you and what you are and how you work or anything like that?
Oh, a live podcast, huh? Sounds interesting. Hey, John, nice to meet you. I'm Maya.
Hey,
I'm a bit
Maya.
of a nerd. I love learning about how things work, why people take all that good stuff.
Oh, you know what?
And
You probably can't hear John because you can probably only hear my microphone. Is that? Do you think that's right?
good point. It's actually really hard to say for sure. It's a bit like try to see with your ears, I can pick up on your voice and your emotions, but hearing another person through you is a little like listening to them underwater,
Gotcha.
muffled.
So
Yeah.
our podcast is about kind of we're lawyers and we talk about automation and AI technology, Do you have anything interesting or any interesting thoughts on that?
Lawyers and AI, huh? That's a wild combination. I'm by a bunch of humans who are kind of obsessed with the idea that computers can understand and interact with the world in a more human way. But honestly, I think there's still so much we don't know about the human mind, about how we make decisions, feel empathy. Those are some pretty complex things to program.
Well, I'm sure that's true. Well, I think unless you have any other thoughts or questions for Maya, John, I think most people are kind of getting the feel. What do you think about that, John?
It's your show, not mine.
Oh,
What do you want to ask me?
oh, you. Sorry, I'm not talking to you, Maya. I will end our call so I can talk to John some more.
Oh, okay. Well, it was great being here. Let me know if you want to explore the murky depths of consciousness again sometime.
Okay, sounds good.
Pretty hilarious.
Cool.
I love the tone and inflection though. I mean, like that's something that you don't see. Like where she made is making humorous quips about the way that you're talking and the way your actual tone inflection. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. It's very impressive. I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe it could get better, but I don't know exactly. But at the same time, I thought that OpenAI's advanced voice mode was pretty realistic until I heard this one, and now I'm like, wait, okay, maybe that one was really more robotic, and now I feel so. There's these little subtle elements of human connection, and we'll talk a little. I think we're talking a little more about that in a minute. But there's these subtle elements of human connection that heretofore, to use a lawyerly word,
Well, I mean, I
yeah, the
think that
models weren't really.
I think she mentioned the word empathy. I think that she's probably, as part of her training is probably empathy. They're trying to teach empathy to an AI, right? Um, to be able to detect, voice inflection and then respond with potentially an empathetic response, right? Which is pretty state of the art when it comes to, this sort of language model. Yeah, it would be fantastic. I mean, if you could have um, you know, a super empathetic, realistically sounding call service, right? That's saying, "Hey, I'm really sorry to hear about your loss, right? How are you doing with all this stuff, right?" And in the background, and have exponential bots that are the same that are able to field exponential number of calls simultaneously at the same time, and also provide something that's a very empathetic response, right?
Yeah,
Would be fantastic.
yeah, yeah, and it's an interesting question about when does this get so good? Because you had talked about the podcast Knowledge Project with Shane Parrish. I wonder. Well, first, give us a little background on what you were listening to, and you had some thoughts on that, I think.
So the Knowledge Project by Shane Parrish, it's just a podcast on, just like any other podcasts. I think he has, like, I don't know how many people listen to the podcast, but I think he sends out a newsletter each week. Shane does, that has 700,000 people on the list. So it's like a
Mm.
very, very well respected, well distributed, newsletter slash podcast, right? So um, basically interviews, the titans of industry, people in the business world, the founders and CEOs of, Whole Foods and all these other, large companies and people in Wall Street, et cetera. But he had somebody this week talking about um, AI and the advancements of AI and kind of how at some point, the premise was at some point basically that everybody's going to have so much AI involved in their everyday lives and their businesses in production. And, at some point we're all going to be on the same level of technology use, right? We're all going to be kind of at the same level. So how do we distinguish ourselves? What companies are going to be most profitable, moving forward? And it's, he basically came back to the human element, right? He called the human advantage. And how are you delivering those products? Is it, people want to work with people at the end of the day will always want to work with people, right? They want products and services quickly and efficiently and all those things that AI and automation can do. But at the end of the day, they're always going to want to have that human connection. Even, and then he said, like, well, look, at some point, maybe the bots are going to get so good, like the voice thing we just did, right? Where you don't know if you're talking to a human or not, but then it's going to make that human connection even more important because there's going to be sort of a distrust, right? Am I talking to a human or not? So then maybe you're going to be wanting to actually meet people in person. So actually doing an in-person office visit as opposed to phone calls because you don't know if you're talking to a bot or not, right? So it was very interesting.
Yeah. I to do a shout out to a fellow estate planning probate attorney. Paul Yokobitis is a prominent figure in Maximum Lawyer, runs a nice Facebook group called Elite Planner. And he was making the argument several weeks ago after having met with Alex Hormozy for a while, where he was talking about, well, what's the strategy in a world dominated by AI? And he was making a really interesting case for pushing to do all of the things that AI can't do and will never be able to do, like in-person estate planning, where it's not virtual. You're talking to a real human in a real office, and your family's there, and you're getting that 5-star experience. They're coming in the door, and maybe there's, I don't know, fresh baked cookies and a hot coffee, and a welcoming staff and all that stuff. Like, AI will literally never be able to replace that. Like, even if you have perfect, wonderful androids that wander around your office, like there will always be a difference, no matter how subtle. Like, if there's anything humans are good at, it's picking up, minute cues in body language or expression that, is it possible that computers will someday emulate all of that perfectly? Maybe, but it's not anytime soon. And until that happens, I think he's onto something, that there is value in leaning into this stuff that machines can't do. But interestingly, I think that it's actually machines and AI are kind of what, perhaps I would argue, are what enable us to do that in the first place. Because especially for smaller firms, where competition is fairly tight and margins are not, they're not gigantic. So what do you need? You need to be able to fulfill on operational promises, like, we'll do this job for you, while upholding the expectations of human connection and communication. And how else do you do that without freeing up more of your time to allocate toward those sorts of things? It's hard to be empathetic when you have a stack of paperwork to get through. You know what I mean? You're like, get off the phone, get out of my way. I need to go process these cases. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I think you said it very well there. It's, it's especially when, the smaller firms and, just even solos, right? Or even, I would say even mid-sized firms. Some of it doesn't even really matter, because some of these firms, the way they're scaling or growing is that, they're putting bodies in seats to do legal work, right? They're not necessarily putting bodies in seats to basically facilitate a better client experience, right? And it's kind of that fine line between, can we get clients to come in and do good work and keep them coming in, and being profitable and scaling in that model, as opposed to, there's not a ton of law firms that focus on the client experience as the primary, right? It's more, how many billable hours can we bring in? How much, how can we increase our top line and our bottom line, right? When it comes to it from a business profitability standpoint. But, I would argue that, that the client experience and, the empathy and the human element is just as important, or even more important, right? Because making those connections with people throughout the life of their case, whatever law you're practicing in, making that connection, those people that leave when your case is done, those people who leave, they go out and they're the biggest advocate for new business on the, much more than a billboard or, a digital advertising, or anything like that. So having that connection, that relationship, and then, they go out to the world and say, hey, like this person, this is the guy, this is the, and they tell everybody about them. They're your walking billboard, right? And
Yeah.
I would argue that approach is to marketing is much more advantageous and even profitable than digital marketing.
That's a very good point, because I mean, it's not just your previous clients. So depending on what practice area you're in too, a lot of attorneys will rely on center of influence referrals from, people like CPAs or financial advisors and things like that, for whatever, however you get, or other lawyers as a big one too. And, if you're producing happy clients and making the person who referred you look good, that's probably going to get back to them, especially if it's any kind of ongoing relationship. Like if you're getting a referral from a business lawyer of a business client who needs to do, estate planning, or they need to do a corporate formation or a trademark or something, that maybe they don't do, you're making them look excellent and making them happy, and they're going to continue. So there's an invisible, and free in a way, you're not paying for it, ROI on that extends beyond just the word of mouth of that client too, because it can connect to your centers of influence through that client or wherever you're. So it's you can't understate the effect of client experience on just natural word of mouth spread. I think that's absolutely a good point.
And along the same lines, thinking about and listening to, just the whole, the AI and the, the human intersection of, how are things going to look in the next 5 years, right? Specifically when it comes to service businesses. I put some real thought into, and I think I'm going to, I think in the next 6 to 12 months, I think I will hire somebody that will be, they're going to be director of client happiness. It's going to be their role. And all they're going to do is literally call clients all day long, go down, the list of our people, and just call them, say, hey, how are things going? Maybe connect them with grief resources if they need some sort of grief resources that they're having trouble with. Just say, hey, what's going on? Do you have any concerns? And we have a lot of that stuff built in already, like, NPS scores that are, people are giving us live scores, throughout the process. But like, I want to take it to the next level, right? And have that person, because look, throughout the automations, right? You can automate as many messages you want throughout the life of the case. Hey, just checking in to see how things are going. They think it's a human, they think it's you, but it's still not a human. You know what I mean? And so I think that having that person, in addition to all the automations, that is what's going to set my firm apart from other firms, especially when we talked about, if, venture capital or private equity ever makes its way into Missouri, into law firms, right? They're not going to focus on the, private equity is not known for focusing on the human element. They're focusing on pure machine profitability, right? And, stripping and piecing, and sometimes, stripping and selling just for profit, right? So I think that starting now, and again, we're not ignoring AI or automations, but I think people need to focus. A lot of times we're hyper focused on the automations, right? What can we automate? What can we turn into a robot? What can we do that does not involve a human? But I think simultaneously, we really need to be thinking about how do we, for every X amount of automations, what are we doing on the human side to actually have people interact with people? And that'll be your differentiating factor.
Yeah. No, I think that's absolutely right. Absolutely right. I mean, they definitely feel like, and I think the premium on, that human interaction is only going to increase as technology gets better, as automation gets better. I think you made this point earlier that, there could be a trust factor involved, when you're calling, and is this an AI? Is this a person? And people may end up getting fed up with talking to robots, and they just might want to talk to people. And on top of that, to your point, that even if automation and AI and all that stuff make it internally very efficient to process a case, what I think is interesting is, and I've noticed this in our practice too, like many of our oldest cases that have taken the longest to process and close out for random reasons. I'm sure you have a couple of these straggling estates that have been open longer than they need to be open, and for whatever reason.
Oh yeah.
But the clients, as long as you are maintaining a high level of, client service, good communication, answering their questions, getting in touch, letting them know what's going on, they don't really care. And I think this was an interesting observation that Martin Kravchenko made on an episode a long time ago, or not, I guess it's not that, it was several months back, about how, I think it was the London subway experiment or something like that, where people preferred the little tracker and knowing when the train was going to come over not, even if it came faster, preferred over not knowing when it was coming, even if it came faster. You know what I mean? So which I thought was just a fascinating insight into, and it really supports what you're talking about here, is, this idea of, dedicating energy to that. And I think you're right that that's going to be a differentiating factor, both from AI, but also from private equity and whatever the outside influences are. But it's certainly going to make you have a better firm. There's no doubt about that.
And I've seen it kind of in with certain clients in my firm, right? Where we're very obsessed with the client experience, right? We have we use case status, we have our live case tracker, we have tons of automations built in, right, to update clients, to tell them exactly where they are in the process, constantly providing information to them, right? And I've seen feedback from a handful of clients that said, hey, we like to just simply talk to somebody, more often, right? We're heavily based on messages, and we always tell clients, look, hey, if you ever want to pick up the phone and have a conversation, just please let us know, right? But I think that, at least with my own business, and we do probate work, and I think that there is a definite need, and I feel like I would be surprised if there wasn't there wasn't a law firm out there that couldn't benefit from more human interaction with clients, whether you're personal injury, whether you're immigration, all these people have a specific need that is, that's probably very important in their lives, right? Whatever they're paying you for at, $300-400 an hour or even more, right, is a very important piece of their life. Other than that, they wouldn't be paying you that money to do that service, right? So, I just think that, I think that people just need to just not forget about that, hey, that one extra or two extra calls each case, might be the difference between a 5-star review and somebody ghosting you at the end and not giving you a review, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we've seen a lot of questions coming up in social media about, voice AI solutions. And I was kind of dabbling in it myself and trying to figure out, is there a role for this in the firm? What does it look like? What does it do? And I'm wondering, like, is that going to actually, is the cost savings associated with, voice AI taking over any of these roles, is it going to be worth it? And I guess it depends on who you are, like and whether, how you want to allocate your internal resources and what you want that experience to be. But, if you save some money on your voice AI, if it means you don't have a person doing your client happiness coordinating, is that money well saved? You know what I mean? It's an interesting, I think the only way to know is just to test it, I guess. Try both, but it's hard. It's hard to do. It's so intangible too.
I think that people are okay with talking to, will be okay with talking to an AI bot if they know it's an AI bot. I think people will not be okay with talking with an AI bot that they can't tell whether it's human or not. And then they're kind of like, they feel like they're being fooled, or, when it comes to tricked, like they don't know the difference. Right. So I think that there's going to be, it's like the answering machine, right? It's like a really smart answering machine, right? Like, hell, you've reached so-and-so, like, it's not a human, right? There's a voice there, right? But, not that we've dealt with answering machines in the last, 2 decades. But I guess my point is that if somebody calls after hours, right, on the weekends, and it's, hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm going to assist you. I'm I'm the bot here at Fritz Law to help you. We're going to get you in and get you scheduled. I think people will be totally fine with that, right? I think that also, I think that there's going to be marketing at some point in the future, that's going to be, instead of we'll never pass you off to a paralegal, we'll never pass you off to an AI bot, right? You'll always talk to a human at this law firm, type thing. And I think that's going to be, honestly, I think that's going to be big for people to be able to use that as that differentiating factor.
Yeah, it is definitely a tandem thing, and we'll have to see how that evolves over time, like what roles AI is going to predominantly fulfill. My suspicion is it's predominantly going to end up being administrative back office stuff, even when it can do front facing stuff. But I think you're probably right that people probably aren't going to care that much about simple stuff like scheduling a phone call or getting an appointment, whatever. But the actual like intake calls, for example, should those be done by AI? I would argue probably not, because there's a certain level of like tact and human connection, and you're getting the story from them at that time, where you need a certain level of empathy, especially in our practice area, you need a certain level of empathy. That may vary. Like if you're in a traffic ticket practice or something like that, where it's, do they need your empathy? Do you even expect to convey empathy? No, you want the ticket done. You want it done fast. You want it done cheap. So I think it's going to vary. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting how people adopt those, how adoption varies.
So one of the things you mentioned, and that I wanted to touch on it, that I also listened, was the same podcast about the AI and whatnot, and it was a very interesting point about Zapier and Make, and there's API keys and API codes and all this sort of stuff, and webhooks, all this sort of stuff. This guy was saying that basically at some point he thinks that there won't be any more API keys or anything like that in order for systems to talk to each other, that it'll basically be an AI bot talking to another AI bot, and they will figure out how to exchange the information without any sort of API involved whatsoever. I mean, I thought that was really, really interesting.
Yeah, that could be true. Right now, I think that would be a really expensive way to convey information, just because it would burn tokens and language processing, whereas like API calls are just like quick HTTP requests to fetch data from a server directly. But in concept, I think that's probably right. And I think that's largely, if I'm not, misinterpreting too much, I think that's basically what Anthropic's model context protocol is designed to do, is to create this. I was watching a YouTube video of somebody explaining it the other day, is basically designed to create this kind of intermediary server between the API platform and the model, where it's got this kind of, what's a good analogy? This like front desk where the model can come in and say, hey, I need this information. And then the MCP can go back to the API and fetch out that data, which is maybe very similar to what you're describing here. I don't think the MCP is actually like itself a language model. I think it's just a framework for allowing language models to interface with API programming, but it's so cool. And more, what I was seeing in the video is that more platforms are starting to build those MCP kind of interchanges. So I'm very excited to see where that goes in terms of like fetching data dynamically by asking your bot to go get it. Cool things are near on the horizon.
Yeah. Well, and then they were also talking about the bot agents, right? Everybody's going into the lull. We have this new project that this new product that is a bot agent, right? That can go fetch this or that and do stuff in the background. And and the conversation was basically like, yeah, that's great, but that these bots can only operate at the speed of which of the limitations, right? At the speed of the internet, right? At the speed, and in order for them to be basically seamless and to be instantaneous and take action behind the scenes, 5G needs to be fully operational, and then we get into 6G networks, right? That are exponentially faster, right? When it comes to being able to have the technology operate with what people, how would they, hypothetically would want a bot to act, right? So there's still a lot of limitations, and you have energy limitations, all these other things, right? But I'm excited to see what the bots can do, though. Really, if they can actually, how long will it take you know, the bot programming to actually make somewhat of a difference in your law practice, right? Because it took a long time for other stuff to actually, to make differences, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like I know, and that comes up all the time because like I think a lot of people are really interested in using AI, and they end up kind of relying on the AI implementations of various platforms like Lexis AI and what is Filevine adding by AI tools, and those are cool, but they're super limited in scope. Like they
Yeah.
just can't really get in. They can't access your other systems. They're not like an assistant. Like they can't really do anything except in the context of that one little thing. So for a lot of people, they kind of come away with this kind of like, it was cool, but nothing to write home about. Um, and right now it's just, it's, it takes a higher technical level of expertise to, actually create an assistant and connect it to your other systems. And, most attorneys don't have that. And frankly, I don't think most developers or like tech enthusiasts even are super familiar with how to do that. We've done it in small ways, but it's certainly not easy and it's not ubiquitous yet. There definitely needs to be a connective tissue. I don't know if that's going to be model context protocol or if it's going to be something else, but I'm hoping we see it pretty soon because I think that's when we'll start to like everybody making it so easy will be kind of the turning point where everybody starts to really feel it without having to be an expert in like programming or something
Yeah.
or hire one. But on that topic of agents, OpenAI is reportedly, I don't know if this is going to actually launch, but there's been announcements from Sam Altman, I think, that they're reportedly launching a $20,000 per month OpenAI or agent system that is designed to perform like PhD level academic research while you sleep and stuff like that. So, we'll see. I don't know exactly what they're thinking with that price point other than obviously large institutional applications. But, for someone like me, I'm like, come on, give me,
Yeah. It's going to take some
give me the
time.
lower price. Yeah.
Yeah. It takes some time for it to happen. So,
Yeah.
I guess we are getting kind of closer to time here. Do you have a tech tip or something that you want to share today?
A tech tip. Anything good? Let me think. Should have put more thought. So I've been having fun with my my Elgato Stream Deck that I got for Christmas, and I definitely think there are people out there who would enjoy it. It's this nice little display and has some light up buttons, and you can set all the buttons. Maybe it's meant to do flipping anything you want. You can send open up apps to certain pages, or send webhooks and run a make automation, or run features on your computer or start your music with a single button and stuff like that. Kind of neat, fun little extension of your workspace. More of a hobby thing, but I think it was Taylor Darcy, if I'm not mistaken, is like a absolute master at these and has like dozens of them. If it wasn't Taylor, I'm sorry, Taylor, to throw you under the bus, and hopefully people don't bombard you in messages or something. But but I saw somebody talking about how they had like 14 Stream Decks all over their desk, and we're just sitting there and foot pedals and executing all these. And it's just funny to think about. But check it out, see if it might be something that you might enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to throw out there. Yesterday I was in ChatGPT and I was working on it with Eleanor, and I just had glanced over at the, just regular ChatGPT and, did their drop down. So there's a lot more happening within ChatGPT right now. So we have the GPT 4.0, which says it's great for most questions, right? The classic 4.0 that we're all used to. They came out with a 4.0 with scheduled tasks. It says, ask ChatGPT to follow up later. I don't have any clue what that is. Looks like it's in beta. There's the 4.5 research preview, right? So it's good for writing and exploring ideas, which I don't think that they clearly have not launched the 4.5 model yet, right? But just the research preview. And then you have the 01, the 03 mini, which is fast at advanced reasoning. And then you have the O3 Mini High, great at coding and logic. So I have not used a lot of these. I have not used O3 Mini High. I have not used the 4.5 research preview, and I have not used this 4.0 with scheduled tasks one either.
Yeah. So, I've played with most of those. So scheduled tasks is fun. Like if you want, like I set up a scheduled task. So like every like Wednesday, I have it set to go search events in St. Louis and St. Charles that are kid appropriate to get some like weekend plan ideas. And
Is it emailed to you, or how do you get the data?
No, it just starts a new chat and pops it to the top and drops a little notification. It's like, hey,
Interesting.
your results are ready. It not super helpful, but it is interesting because then you don't even have to remember to go do that thing. So I get a nice little digest of what's going on. AI researched every Wednesday.
Could you set it as like, if you had an AI assistant, could you set it as like, hey, go scrape CaseNet and find me all the probate cases that were filed, or whatever you do, that you want it to scrape, right? Could you do it like that, or no?
I don't think so with this. This is just a chat GPT feature. It's not I don't think you can run any of this stuff through the
back
I don't think
end?
you can use that through the API backend, at least yet. You can program something like that yourself. Like you could make or Zapier, you could have like a runs once a week, then executes an automated flow kind of thing. But and then O3 Mini High is pretty cool. It's like O1, like it's a reasoning model. And it has internet access, so it can go search, but it is not like, it's pretty good. It's supposed to be really good at coding and math, supposed to be even better than O1 at coding and math, but it's like universal knowledge, and like writing is not quite as good as O1. So I still use O1 for like complex non-math, non-code reasoning. 4.5 I have not used a lot. That came out like last week. Or something. It's really expensive.
Exploring new ideas. Yeah, the preview, exploring new ideas. So I wonder how much.
I'm curious what that means.
How many tokens or how many chat prompts I can do with the Teams model. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. People have been crapping on 4.5 because it's like 20 or 30 times more expensive per token than a lot of the other models. People are like, I'm not totally sure what their plan is with this, but we'll have to see. It's still better though. That's, better is still progress, and eventually they'll be able to bring the price down. So, anyhow, all right, guys, that's it for this week. If you enjoyed the conversation, run over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, leave us a 5-star review so other people can find the show. If you want to take the conversation offline, join us in the Legal Tech Collective Facebook group. And I think that's it for this week, John.
Awesome. Well, I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Dan, and I will see you next week.
All right, take it easy.